Hey everybody, Ed Carbajal, Matt Hawkins here, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. Uh, Coming at you the week of the final UFC pay-per-view of 2022 and Bellator 289's bantamweight tournament. Um, had some interesting fights last weekend, Matt. I know we were kind of like I don't know how you, I mean, we were kind of high on the Orlando card from the UFC, and then my boy, my boy, RDR. Yeah, I mean, we kind of saw that coming, but didn't want to. Well, I didn't want to believe it. But at one on Prime Five, man. What did you think of the fights?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously we have a lot to catch up on. There was some stuff from last weekend that we talked about. Unfortunately for the fans, we did have Patty the Batty scheduled, but we didn't have enough money in our Anchor account to pay for him to come on the show this week. So we're gonna have to just do our thing. And the MMA media, whose clowns that are paying for interviews, can continue to do their thing. Yeah, no, bunch of stuff last weekend. One. I mentioned it a little bit during the show. Obviously, we were rooting for DeRitter, but I also mentioned that, man, eventually you run into a beast when you keep going up in weight. Um, Again, I texted you. I have no idea what one does with their weight classes. I do not understand how a fight that took place where they announced the weight at 225 was light heavyweight, but we'll just let that go for now. Give Malkin his due. Undefeated animal. I think DeRitter, he pushed the limits. It's what we like about fighters, but I the guy was Malkin's a beast. I mean, I don't think there's really any more to
Yeah,
really not much to say about that. I mean, the fight stayed on the feet, and that obviously was not a good thing for DeRitter when you're messing with a guy who's throwing you know concrete fists at you. It appeared during
yeah,
the fight.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I remember because I was watching the press conference. Was it after we recorded when I messaged you, and I was like, "Yo, this dude looks kind of massive." And then but then they squared off at the weigh-ins, and I was like, okay, they're kind of like, because Doritos a very long, like, tall giant dude, but just not as thick looking. Like, I was kind of like, okay, maybe he's got something there, but not for nothing. If you watch it, and one championship does a good job of putting these fights individually up on their YouTube channel. If you don't feel like going back to watch it on Amazon Prime, but if you watch this fight, man, like every punch Malikin threw sounded like it hurt even just to block it. And I remember he landed one jab. Well, what looked like a jab, but when it landed, it seemed like it was just like, see, all his punches just seemed like hard crosses. And I was like, yo, like when DeRitter caught that one, I was like, man, he recovered all right that time, but that was like early in the first round. And after, like, I mean, it was a first round finish because I don't know how many of those he like absorbed before they just started, like, you can only, I mean, that guy, I feel like if that guy hit any normal, like, schmo like us once, we'd be like in the hospital or something, broken face. That dude's a monster. Now he's the champ over there, light heavyweight and heavyweight. So they still have a champ, just not the guy they were pushing.
Yeah, yeah, and I, like I said, the weight class thing just confuses the living hell out of me. But
Yeah,
um, like I said, if DeRitter had to lose, at least it kind of built a new star based off
yeah.
of him. I mean, DeRitter rose to, like you said, it was less than 12 months ago. You were kind of hyping him up as this prospect.
Well,
Now
because he's
he had already been the champion. He had
yeah,
some big wins over there, but
and they're
you
both undefeated. I mean, so somebody, like they say, someone's was gonna go, but um, the closer it gets to the fight happening, I was just like, they're like, okay, his likelihood of submitting him would seem to be the greatest, but I'm like, I mean, to control monsters like that, dude, guys that are built like that, and he was just so jovial at the like before the fight, like they were very like sportsmen like with each other, but like a guy like that that's just happy to destroy other people. I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
yeah. So that fight was obviously interesting. It was one round. It wasn't the best one card that we've seen so far on Prime.
Mm,
We had the low blow stop the Soldic fight. The grappling matches went to decisions, um, or at least the co-main event one did. We had a couple fights that lost from the card
mhm.
to the weight cutting thing. Um, but on the tails of that, we also got announced finally that on May 4th,
Yeah,
actually, I'm sorry, May
May
5th,
5th. Yeah.
in Broomfield, Colorado. One will finally make its U.S. debut. And I mean, it seems automatic when you thought about it that it was going to be Demetrius Johnson versus Marias 3, the trilogy,
Mhm.
to, I don't know, maybe end that one or just continue a run where these guys fight for a handful of times and continue to put on
Well,
shows because the first two fights have been great. So,
yeah, I mean they finished. They're both 1-1 against each other. They both finish each other by knee, so it's super. There's definitely a story there to sell the fight. I mean, and you know, when I think about trilogies and fights, I always think about video game rules. You know, best 2 out of 3 wins it. So they're
mhm.
1-1 against each other. This should be the one to settle it, and that'll be the end of it. Obviously because they're coming to the U.S., they want to bring their biggest, most winningest name, and that is Mighty Mouse. I feel like he's getting the shine he's long been deserved for being, I mean, as good as he is as a martial artist in competitive mixed martial arts over at One Championship. So I think it's a good like boots on the ground debut for them here in the U.S. I'm wondering, like talking about them rematching, I'm wondering if they're going to try to throw, stack the card, maybe have these guys fight each other again, RDR and Malik. Although I feel like I don't want, I don't want that again,
No,
but
I don't think that should happen this quick. Um, I could see DeRitter on the card as maybe defending his middleweight title.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's true. He still has a belt.
you know
Yeah,
what I mean? He still has a belt. Um, I have a feeling we're gonna see. We'll see uh, Lee, Christian Lee, maybe. I
yeah.
think we're gonna see some of the
All their names. Yeah,
yeah, their names, and it's
Angela Lee, Christian Lee,
Angela
and
Lee. Yeah, I think, and Angela Lee, I think is a probably a foregone conclusion
mhm.
considering she's an American. So I think that they'll probably try to get as many of them on the
if
cards
if
to
they
A,
if
help
they
with travel costs, and B, just to have some English speakers to,
yeah,
if to promote the event.
yeah, I think they'll do. I mean, I'm wondering, guy. I know Colorado approved their global MMA rule set. I'm wondering if they're going to be able to mix up the disciplines on the card too, like they like to do. Like if we're going to get some Muay Thai, kickboxing, and sub only grappling. I feel like the sub only grappling would be easier to add just because it's less, there's less loopholes to jump through. Maybe they could put that as like part of the prelims, and you get Daniel Kelly and obviously the Rutolos on there, Musamechi, all the names that they're signing. But yeah, I'm glad they're doing it. I mean,
I think they got to have some of the Muay Thai. I mean, if you're going to allow knees onto the head, then you already allow Muay Thai probably in the state of
hmm
Colorado. What the gloves thing, I don't know if that's really much of an issue. If it seems to me that that would have to be kind of part of the package because that really is what one is. Um,
hmm
so and as somebody who's interested in possibly attending the event like that, I mean, I'm not saying that that would be uh, a deal breaker, but
hmm
like the idea of going to watch some 4-ounce Muay Thai with the level of the level of fighters that they have on their roster is something that intrigues me.
yeah.
Obviously, watching Matty Mouse fight again is great. That fight is
hmm
specifically because it's a trilogy and it has a storyline is awesome. Grappling stuff, sure, give me a couple of them, but mainly I'd love to see some of that Muay Thai and. I think you're gonna almost need that. I think if you put too much grappling on the card,
Oh yeah, yeah.
you're
No,
gonna
there's
risk losing the American audience, the
as
live
much
audience
as
specifically.
grappling has grown. Like when you look at the ADCC from this past summer and stuff like that, or last spring rather, or summer. Yeah, um, it's grown a lot. The fan base has grown. There's more grappling schools all around, but it's still not where other combat sports are.
If you're trying to make a splash in the United States,
hmm
probably heavy grappling card is wouldn't be the one to do.
hmm
You've already got a main event
As,
that's pretty much written
yeah,
fireworks. And if you put some of the Muay Thai fights on there, you get a DeRitter, you get one of their other champions on the card. I would think you'd want to stack it. I don't think
yeah,
it would seem weird to me to come all the way to the United States, go through all the loopholes, deal with all the BS to get in this to get the country to in the state of Colorado to allow you to come here and then give us a less than firework, guaranteed kind of card. So I think that's going to happen. I'm curious to see how they promote it. As we both know, MMA companies don't do a great job of promoting like even they seem to have used to. Eh, you know, it just doesn't seem like the promotion is as big for anything, whether it's even
Mhm.
UFC. Bellator specifically has seemed to drop off a little bit on their promotional side. Um, and so we'll see how they take it. Curious to see the price point for tickets as well. Um, a lot of times companies try to get going and they try to make that instant buck. We all know we've heard the financial situation for one, so hopefully they don't plan on coming to the US and making it all up and in an event with some kind of crazy price point to get into the show.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Well,
somewhere in
they
the
have a
range.
deal. I mean, they do have the deal with Amazon, so hopefully Amazon's helping them out with cost because we all know a broadcast deal means a lot to any promotion. And they seem to have a very well working partnership with Prime Video right now. So we'll see what happens. Like you said, I mean, I think they have to find a comfortable medium point or like middle price point for fans. They did send out a link on their social channels to gauge interest. I know I sent you that link. For folks that do want to attend the event. Um, I'd like to attend the event as media just because I could never get to Singapore to cover their other stuff. So I mean, if it's a one and done, I'd like to try to do it. I mean, you made it to the when Pride came to Cali, right? Did you get to those?
I went to Pride Vegas. I went to the first one. I went to Pride
Yeah.
32. They returned for 33, which was actually turned out to be the loaded card with the
Hmm.
Gomi Diaz and Hendo Silva. But I saw Fedor and
Yeah.
got to see the
But
debut.
that's like something I wish. I mean, there's a bucket list thing. You always want to try to get to a Pride. You got to a Pride event, and Pride is no longer. So
No, it's one of
I'd
those.
like to
It's
get
one of the
to
memories that I have
yeah
for sure. That I'm glad that I was able to go. I have a little couple miscellaneous souvenirs, kind of from the event that
yeah.
are kind of cool to just like you said, reminisce on it. And I like like you said, when this one and done, like even ACB had one event in the United States, and
Hmm.
turned out it was about an hour and a half for me, and I made it to that. That was Thiago Silva fought Luis Palomino. Shout out to Luis Palomino, the baboon. By the way, he defended his BKFC title this past weekend. Dude, basically the guy we've talked about him since his first BKFC fight,
Yeah.
about how he was always kind of like the bridesmaid when it came to being
Hmm.
on the side of a great fight, but not getting his hand raised. Dude moves to 8-0 in BKFC. He's essentially the bare knuckle goat at this point.
Hmm.
Although that sounds funny to say for something that's only been around a handful of years. I think 5 years is what BKFC just celebrated. Um, so, but my God, man, another knockout, another, went out there, slugged it out. He ended up bloody, got cut up too. Tom Shelf's tough, but Palomino really seems to have found his groove, and I mean, I couldn't be happier for the guy. Seems like a really nice guy. Met him for a photo, but never really got a chance to chat with him. But he seems like a really,
Yeah, he
down to
is.
earth, fan friendly, good
Yeah,
dude.
I spoke with him back in the WSOF days. When one of the last times they fought in they had an event in Foxwoods, and we were actually on the same floor, and so I got to talk to him and watch him do his whole thing where he checked in with his family and stuff, and then had to ride the elevator down with the suit on and do the whole thing of arena arrival. But he was still like super like as most fighters are cordial and friendly and stuff like that. So yeah, he and not for nothing when I hear about his success in BKFC, I'm like, well, the guy did do two like bomb fests with Justin Gaethje in the
Yeah,
WSL.
exactly. Like it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. It also he excuse me, he kind of hinted that BKFC was looking to put an event in Peru, and he was looking to headline and defend his event in Peru. So something that would be kind of cool to
Hmm.
see. A guy who made his name fighting in the United States, basically through these organizations, and he earned the right to basically get a promotion to go to his country,
Hmm.
put on an event and he gets to headline it in front of his, in front of his home country. So, props to him. Like I said, he's been the highlight of BKFC for me
Yeah.
for the last couple of years, and somebody that I will not miss the guy's fight. They're spectacular, and he's just found his groove. So, mad props to him. Another quick note about bare knuckle fighting before we jump onto the next subject. BYB 14 is this Friday. It's in South Carolina. Our buddy Doc John Lucas will be working it. First legal bare knuckle event in South Carolina. I did text him and tell him to get a little extra sleep because I figured he was going to have a lot of work to do on Friday night. So we look forward to that. It used to be not as easy to find. It used to be on YouTube. I think it's a pay-per-view this time, but that's BYB 14. That's the Trigon with Data and Goldberg and quite a crew of guys that promote and help put that event on. So it might be something to gather up if you get away from the big Bellator event this weekend. One more note from last weekend though, I think we should comment on Wonderboy Thompson, Kevin Holland, main event from the ESPN UFC Fight Night. I mean, I talked about it being a fun fight. I talked about it being a fight that doesn't have a whole lot of meaning, but is the fights that we should be seeing when we're talking about some of these guys right now
Yeah.
in their career, and really it delivered. Um,
Mhm.
was it an MMA fight? Not really. It was really kind of a bare knuckle. It was kind of the Muay Thai fight, that we talked about with
Well, it was
one.
like, yeah, it was like kind of like an old school, like I started thinking about, and like a lot of folks don't know that Wonder Boy fought in the Chuck Norris World Combat League, and I kind of felt like it was almost like that. Although there was some light like takedown, but it was weird how there was that unwritten agreement that they weren't going to stay on the ground, and I think it's even cooler how, like, even when Kevin Holland damaged his hand, he was still willing to stand with Wonder Boy. If you listen to Wonder Boy's post fight press interview after that, I mean, this talks to you about talk about these old school karate guys, him and his dad, and that lineage that they have there with the training. Um, that was like the plan was to attack his right hand because that was obviously the one that did the most damage, and he wound up breaking his right hand. But it, I remember watching and wondering why you keep kicking that, like you're kicking his shoulder. I was waiting for him to go low and try to like do some body kick. Usually, if you get a guy to block high enough, you open up a shot to the liver. And Wonder Boy never really took it. He started doing spinning back stuff, and he just kept hitting it. And then, so in the post fight press conference, he was like, "Yeah, we did that to take away the power. He won't throw it so much as if his shoulder, his hand, forearms gets damaged enough from me hitting it, it's gonna go away." And I was just like, "Holy shit! Did you like talk about strategy?" And I mean, people don't think that these guys do stuff like this. Like they're that's why they fight at the level they do, both of them, because they both. I mean, like you said, I mean that was, I mean, and it was all free on ESPN. Like probably the most fun outside of the MSG card. Probably the most fun UFC card I watched this whole year. Hopefully, I'm not forgetting anything from earlier in the year. But yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, the main event specifically, like
Yeah.
you said, it just shows the intricacies and some of like the strategies and stuff that you don't really know about. None of us really would have known that he was
Mhm.
targeting the hand unless you listened to the post fight. You would have never really known about it if Holland had won the fight. It was just one of those things where you learn
Mhm.
about a strategy. Um, you know, it was fun to watch. I see some of the people kind of overreacting, acting like
Mhm.
it's the best fight ever. I think Bisping made a post like that's delusional and recent bias. Like it was a fun stand up fight, which is what we wanted.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like it wasn't really a UFC mixed martial arts fight in a sense that you didn't really have Holland, in my opinion, didn't went out there more to put on a show
Mhm.
than to win, and I'm okay with that, and I think he's okay with that because he's getting paid, and he's
Mhm.
a prize fighter, and he knows that he probably makes more money almost in a loss fighting that way than if he takes Wonder Boy down, manages to lay on top of him,
Mhm.
and win, and wins kind of a fight where everybody's kind of like, well, I didn't really need to see that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think there's a smart play in there. Seems like Holland's kind of doing a one fight by one fight deal in his mind, at least, as
Yeah.
far as, like, I want to be a main event. I want to get
Mhm.
paid. I need to be fighting people that I want to fight. And win or lose, I want to walk away with enough money that it was worth it to me. And
Mhm.
props to him and credit to him for pulling that off, because that's really how they should be.
Yeah.
Um, once you get past like these world title fights, like if that was a world title fight, I don't really want to see that in a world title fight. Like in a world
No.
title fight, I want to see two dudes who are using every single strength they have
Mm.
to win a fight, and, you know, but it was fun as hell to watch, and like I
Yeah.
said last week, that's kind of what we're hoping for with these guys. Also, it was great. It's great to see Wonder Boy getting some credit again. I
Mhm.
feel like he was kind of getting downplayed a little bit. He had the fights with Woodley, and then he had the kind of the out of nowhere knockout loss to Pettis. And then he had the great fight with Luke, and I mean, he's had some ups and downs, but it seems like fans had kind of lost a little bit of a sight on like how
Mhm.
good he is at what he does. And if the right matchups are made, he's really one of the funnest fighters in all of MMA to watch. I always talked about wanting to see him fight MVP or Raymond Daniels. I thought that those would have been just awesome fights to see in an MMA cage with the smaller gloves. But obviously those are unlikely to happen. But
Mhm.
hopefully they give him a good fight. Hopefully we just don't get him against some big wrestler who we just,
Yeah.
and it slows his momentum. Let's have some fights. McGregor's a good fight. Masvidal's a good fight. Basically, all the fights he threw out there that he was interested in were fights that are fun, and we're not going to see a lot of grappling, which
Mm.
again maybe isn't the purest of MMA, but but it's fun, and it's what we, and it keeps you glued to the TV, and you're not going to miss the fight. So
Yeah.
credit to
Yeah.
him.
And one last shout out for that before we move on to this weekend's events. Francis Marshall, who fights out here in New Jersey, Pellegrino MMA, who's Kurt Pellegrino is my instructor's instructor. So, and he coached Francis Marshall, who made his UFC debut, picked up a really nice second round knockout victory. I wrote a story about him because apparently he lost his uncle I got news that his uncle passed away on fight week, and still showed up and fought like the way he did. So I just wanted to mention that. If you follow me on Twitter, you can read the details on the story. But I mean, these dudes that do this for a living full time, they they do it. They're cut from a different cloth. So, did you need to go check on that? That's our
No,
mascot.
yeah, Halo. I don't know. Somebody knocked on the door out in here.
So while Matt deals with that,
I think we'll be all right. She's
all right,
she's a watchdog.
yeah.
Um,
But
but
yeah. So Francis Marshall picked up that knockout victory, and hopefully, I know he said he wants to get back in the cage as soon as March 2023. Maybe they get him in New York or Atlantic City. I thought he was going to be on the MSG card, to be honest with you, but obviously they put him in on the East Coast, still in Florida, but Orlando's only a 2.5 hour flight from Jersey. So I'm glad that he still got to be, and I know he said he had family down there because that's where his uncle was when he passed away. But shout out to Francis Marshall for picking up the win. But yeah, speaking of UFC, I mean, there's one pay-per-view left this weekend, but before that, on Friday, we have the bantamweight, probably the most entertaining fight in the Bellator's bantamweight Grand Prix coming up. Danny Sabatello versus Rafael Stotts. I spoke with Stotts back in June when I covered Bellator 282 for my MMA News, and they had him on desk commentary leading up to just before on Thursday when they did the weigh-ins for that event. So we were talking to him, and it was hard not to notice that he wanted Sabatello to win so he could fight him. So I have a clip for you guys that I just want to play before we get into the card, where he kind of said he was hoping that Sabatello would win because of the lead up to the fight. So let me play that for you now.
Be a tougher fight, but Sabatello, he's you know what I'm saying, he got a lot of.
Let me play that from the beginning.
I mean, it seems like you really want. I mean, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it seems like you really want Sabatello more than
Yeah, I don't necessarily. Yeah, like I feel like Higo will be a tougher fight, But Sabatello, he's, you know what I'm saying. He got a lot of eyes on him now, and because he's got a big mouth, And I'd love to be the one who shuts his mouth, That's just like a cherry on top.
So I just thought that was funny because like it was something that he didn't want to kind of like let go of when I talked to him. And then obviously with the lead up, I mean with the press conference and stuff that they said today, I mean, he's saying Sabatello is fake and stuff like that. I don't know about you, man, but when I'm looking at Bellator 289 and UFC 282 for this weekend, I'm kind of more amped for Friday night than I am for Saturday.
It's a Grand Prix. It's
Yeah.
it's my favorite thing of the sport is a tournament. So
Yeah.
I'm obviously going to not miss these fights. The UFC's had a lot of fights fall through, which we'll get into. But yeah, I mean, to me, we got the final four of a tournament that it was marred a little bit because we lost Pettis, who was the champion, and that always adds into it when the belt's kind of changing hands potentially every fight. Stotts is the interim champion, so the same goes for him here. Potentially Sabatello could walk away as the interim, bantamweight champion after this night, and then move into the finals. I've kind of went back and forth in my head on a pick for this fight. There was a time when I kind of was building up Sabatello in my mind, thinking like his wrestling was just so good that like he might be able to overwhelm. His last fight, he had some ups and downs. The Higo fight, Higo had his moments, um, and it's kind of even just in the last few hours, like I've kind of started to lean more towards Stotts winning this fight, just by being a more complete and well-rounded MMA fighter. I could almost see him winning this fight by knockout, uh, by like avoiding a takedown and Sabatello getting frustrated, maybe doing something sloppy and walking into a knee or something like that. I feel like there's potential for something like that. Um, I do realistically think that this fight probably goes to decision. I know it's 5 rounds, but
Yeah.
I think both of the guys are pretty damn tough and durable.
Yeah.
But I think if there is a finish in the card, I think it's Stotts that would be the one that has the most weapons who could potentially make the finish happen. I don't see either one holding the other one down on the ground
No.
long enough to be able to finish them on the ground. I could see Sabatello winning a round or two if he's able to get position. But I think Stotts is I mean, he's 18-1. I know Sabatello's 13-1, but I feel like Stotts is just a click or two, maybe a click and a half ahead of Sabatello in like the arc of an MMA career and MMA skills at this point.
Yeah, there's something to be said too, I think, for like the reason I played that clip was because that was back in June. So it seems like mentally he was already prepared to face Sabatello. He was doing commentary watching that fight. So he knows kind of what to. I mean, these guys watch enough of each other; they kind of know they have their own homework in the back of their minds of on how to fight them. I see a high pace. I see, you know, I mean, if like you said, it's going to go to. I think I see a decision happening. I don't know if a finish happens. Again, like you said, they're both pretty durable. Stotts is funny in his reactions to Sabatello's. I mean, he was saying that it all seemed faked or forced or whatever, but it's just these guys got to say and do whatever they got to do before they get walking the cage to start physically harming each other. And I think these guys are all that energy that they have it just seems to be a constant keeping them both charged up until they face off on Friday. So I'm looking forward to that one. The ladies, Liz Carmouche, who's the champion there, the world flyweight championship title fight. I kind of have always been like a lot of people don't. If you watch that fight with her and Ronda Rousey, there's a point where she almost beats like she kind of cranks Rousey. I thought she was gonna beat her in that fight before Rousey turned it around. So Carmouche was always kind of somebody that was, I'm liking seeing her come into her own here in Bellator. I think she's still pretty game to hold on to that belt. against Juliana Velasquez. I don't know about you.
I think she's going to lose.
Yeah.
I think she was gifted. I mean, we talked about it because of the stoppage.
Hmm.
In the last fight was in Hawaii, and the salute to the troops. And
Oh, look at that! I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but the pics weren't loading when we were looking at it just a bit ago. Now they're
okay,
in.
so
So,
just kidding.
yeah, most people agree with us about the Stotts fight, and now we're looking at.
Yeah, Eileen Velasquez. She was winning
Mhm.
the fight. She got put in a bad position. Got hit with some kind of, as weird as it is to say, like pillow elbows.
Mhm.
And the referee stopped the fight. I think Juliana Velasquez wins. I'm glad Carmouche got a chance to be a champion.
Mhm.
But I just don't. I think she loses this fight.
Hmm.
I think Velasquez is the. I mean, Velasquez was undefeated until that stoppage.
That's true too. Yeah.
And I just think that she's the younger, more well-rounded's not the word, but you got a new generation. And Carmouche is the old generation. Carmouche is, like you said, she fought Rousey. I was there in
Mhm.
Anaheim, UFC 147. Um, it there's a lot. 157. I'm sorry, not 147. Um, it she's been around a long time. She
Mhm.
fought in what I think Elite XC before that. I mean, she's old school.
Mhm.
I just don't. I just think she loses this fight.
Hmm.
I think she loses by decision. I think she's too tough to lose. She's not going to get submitted.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think she probably gets beat on the feet and has trouble. That's kind of how I see that
Yeah,
fight going.
that's fair. I mean, it looks like the fans agree with you on the Bellator website that we're looking at the card on. 60% of them versus the 40 for Carmouche. I'm in the 40, so we'll see what happens. But again, with the Grand Prix fights, we're looking, like you said, the final four: Patchy Mix and Magomedov. I know we don't normally go against the Magomeds on this podcast.
Never will I go against the double Megomed.
But
Night,
I like Patchy Mix, man. I don't know. It's good. I think this is gonna be another like crazy. I mean, 135ers are always crazy scraps, but I mean, it's hard for me to. I'm a fan of Patrick Mix, and I don't know. I just feel like I feel like he's got the ectomorphic frame. Most people are with you in the podcast stats with 61% picking Magomedov to win, but I'm probably going to be wrong because of that's the rule on the podcast about the Magomeds.
I'm a fan of Patchy Mix.
Yeah,
We've watched him fight a bunch of times since he kind of
yeah.
came on the scene. I just, if I pick Patchy Mix and Megomed wins, what do I say? I've said I've never bet against a double, especially the double Megomed. If it was a
Yeah,
single Megomed, we there would be a lot more to chat about. Spark Erie chiming in with he agrees with the pick of Mix.
Mhm.
I can't do it. I'll look like a fool next week if I came back and Megomed won and I picked against him after 2 years, 3 years now of refusing to pick against the Megomed. So
You're
I'll go
probably
in.
going to be right. I mean,
I think it's a good fight, though.
yeah,
I think this will be a more exciting fight than the main event, um, because of the
yeah,
styles. I think there's
yeah.
potential for some like wacky wildness in this fight, which could definitely be fun. The other fight on the main card, I just want to point out,
Hmm.
Dalton Rosa.
Yeah.
Interesting fact about the guy. So he's 7-0 as a pro. He was also 7-0 as an amateur, and all 7 of his pro wins are in Bellator. So that's kind of we talked about like AJ McKeon stuff and how
Hmm.
some of these guys Bellator developed. You got a guy right here who's knocking on the door of becoming a bit of a household name if he continues to pick up wins. I mean, he's like you said, he's fought for Bellator, 7 times. He's got 7 wins. Just kind of a cool thing, and something that potentially could Bellator could build off of.
Hmm.
I expect him to pick up another win, but I just think it becomes a storyline when you have a guy that we talked. Jillian DeCourcy made her debut
Hmm.
in Invicta. Then she eventually just recently became the atomweight champion over
Yeah.
there. So whenever you got like a homegrown, not a homegrown, but like a company grown guy who you got coming off the
That they had faith
amateur.
in. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you built him up, and he didn't go anywhere else. He stayed loyal to Bellator, continued to fight there. They kept him, and now he's on a main card of a big event in a big uh, venue.
Hmm.
So interesting fight that I'm I'm really kind of interested in checking that fight out and getting to know him a little bit better, and seeing what we have to deal with. Plus middleweight, we talked Aaron Jeffrey, Musasi, Vanderport. There's some names at middleweight that are always in the mix. So if you have another one to throw in there, another undefeated guy to throw in there, always along with obviously the champ.
Yeah. And as always, I mean, I wish I was, I normally do go to Mohegan Sun when they're in my neck of the woods, but this the time of year with the holidays and stuff, I just can't get out there. But I mean, Kai Kamaka III versus Kevin Bowen, and Pat Downey versus Christian Eccles, Cody Law, and Chris Lencioni, who took a break from MMA to do some combat jiu-jitsu and become a dad, and build up his own gym out there on your coast. Is back in Bellator fighting, so these prelims are on their YouTube channel, so you definitely want to check them out. I mean, look at this fight here, Denise Kielholtz versus Ilara Joanne. That's probably going to be a women's strikers
fun fight.
Yeah.
Coming off of a a title fight. So
yeah,
definitely interesting, and a lot of names
Yeah.
I recognize from the Jared Scoggins from
Mhm.
the South Carolina scene. Doc Lucas has actually mentioned him on the podcast in the past. So,
Yeah.
good fights. That's Friday night. Then that moves us to Saturday, which, like you mentioned earlier, the final UFC pay-per-view of the year.
Mhm.
I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure how to categorize it. We it was supposed to be Yuri Prohaska, Glover Teixeira.
Yeah.
Prohaska pulls out. Then it was like, for kind of us old school fans, like, oh well, Robbie Lawler's still fighting, and then we learned earlier this week that Robbie Lawler's out, and then
Yeah,
it's like, well,
Ponzinibbio's still on, but now he's fighting
Ponzinibbio.
at a
But I had looked at the card a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, OSP versus Gustafson. Like,
yeah.
wow, like that's kind of an interesting fight.
And
Look
then
forward
we
to
lost
seeing that.
that.
I lost that one. So we're left with what we got left, and it's there's some excitement on the card, but it definitely took a hit. Prices for tickets have dropped again. I think I mentioned it on the podcast. I don't know if I mentioned it on the air, if I talked to you in private, but tickets that started at like $350 are now in like the $150 range.
Yeah.
You can get lower bowl for $150 for UFC, which is pretty unheard of. There's actually seats for like $100 for a Vegas event, which is pretty unheard of again. So I will not be making the trip for it, as it was something I wasn't planning on it anyway.
Yeah.
Just not a good time of the year for me to
Yes.
make
Yeah.
specifically this year. But if I'm local and listening to the show, I would definitely look into tickets, because it is a UFC card and you can get pretty dang good seats that
Mhm.
you wouldn't normally be able to get your hands on. When you look at the main card, especially the start of the main card, I don't know about you, but that first fight really, Topuria versus Bryce Mitchell,
Yeah.
to me, like, that has all the writings of maybe the show stealer,
Mm.
and maybe a fight
Mhm.
that, because it does have a lot of meaning. You got a couple ranked guys, a couple undefeated guys, and a couple guys who usually put on a show for the crowd. So,
I'm looking at the odds here. I'm just making some notes for myself. Bryce Mitchell's at plus 115. I'm wondering what the prop bets on are, because he's pretty good with his submissions, isn't he?
yeah, I guess he's 15-1. I don't know why I thought he was undefeated. But yeah. I mean, he's good with his submissions. He's pretty good all around. I think
Yes.
Topuria probably has him when it's on the feet. Strike wise, he's a little bit of a wild man. But it's hard to even make a pick in this fight. I lean Bryce Mitchell, but it really is a toss up. You mentioned plus 115. I mean, essentially
Mhm.
that's a coin flip.
Yeah.
So, I'll go with Mitchell to win by decision. But I think that this fight has potential for some odd fireworks and maybe some weird, kind of
Sub or
viral moments in the fight.
Yeah. Sub or decision, I'll say. I'm with you on the Bryce Mitchell pick. I mean, on the no disrespect to Ilya Topuria, but it's definitely it's definitely been the year of we're gonna get to folks that seem to get the UFC push and as we head to the co-main event, but it's definitely one of those fights that he's definitely one of those fighters that seem to be getting somewhat of a push. He's also you see the rankings right there. He's ranked number 9, and that's not for no reason. But like you said, man, I featherweight bout on the opening up the main card. That's probably a nice way to open up a pay-per-view that folks are probably getting mad about fights getting lost. Darren Till versus Dricus Duplessis. I know he's always trying to get people to say his name right. I don't know if I said it right, but this is that. I feel like this is Darren Till was like the guy for a little bit, and then he picked up some L's. And I feel like this is the fight that'll either elevate Duplessis or put Darren Till back where he was. I don't know, man. This guy's no joke. He's pretty tough.
I'm going Duplessis by TKO finish in the 3rd round. I think Till's been gone for quite a while. I'll be curious to see how his gas tank holds up as the fight proceeds. I think he's going to there's going to be a lot of pressure, so I don't think there's going to be a lot of, time for him just to kind of coast during any of the rounds. He's had his moments, but he's also had his times where he didn't really look like necessarily that he should be in some of the fights he's in.
Yeah.
He got the run with the country behind him early on. I lean Duplessis by I think he finishes him. I think he catches him and hurts him, and we get a TKO finish in the 3rd round.
Let's see. We got Mr. MMA injury himself, Kevin Nicholson, shining with some stats on Darren Till. He says Till fought Brunson last time with a torn ACL. He's had multiple injuries to the same knee. Fight of the night for me, huh? I mean, I wonder if those injuries affected his movement, though. Like, as somebody with a bad left knee himself, I know it doesn't get better regardless of what you like.
It's got to slow him down. He kind of had a bounce in his career. Early in his career, he kind of had a bounce to his fighting style, bounced around a little bit for striking. I also opens up kicks to the knee and stuff like that.
Let's look at the odds of this. Yeah, they have Till as a plus 155 underdog, minus 180 for Duplessis.
Fairly close though. I mean, we're not far off of a coin flip. Obviously, Duplessis has the more recent fights for gamblers and everybody to kind of remember, but definitely a good fight. I mean, exciting fight. Probably should be. We move into the next fight. Santiago Ponzinibbio.
Yeah, this is weird to me because Ponzinibbio was the guy that was supposed to be fighting Robbie Lawler. I was Morano on the card already, and that's why he's the favorite, or I don't understand how somebody that's been preparing to fight this week. I usually kind of like when they do something like this and they can find an alternate. I usually favor the guy that's been ready for the fight versus the guy they're pulling in. So, am I missing something with Morano? Like,
no, he wasn't on the fight. He's taking this on 4 days' notice. Maybe he found out a little sooner than that before it kind of got leaked to the public. So best maybe a week's notice, a week and a half. If somehow he found out last week that he was the number one.
I mean, I know he's not like that's not like he sucks or anything, but you know what I mean. Like,
I mean, my initial reaction would be the same thing. And when it flashed by, did they have him at minus 380?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me go back to that. I just clicked the wrong tab. Yeah, minus 380. Morano is the favorite. Argentina. Ponzinibbio. I'm thinking soccer because I'm watching the games with my parents, but yeah. Ponzinibbio's the underdog. Plus 310. Maybe this is messing with. We know the UFC website, which is what we're using for this. We know that they're not exactly up to date when it comes to their numbers and records and stuff. So maybe it's that.
It seems odd for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Morano's had some nice wins, but it seemed he has had 7 losses in his career. Ponzinibbio obviously has had 6. I'm looking. What do we got? Knockout. It seems odd to me. I mean, I don't even know who to pick now. Like
I'm just double checking.
But
I'm checking
obviously there's something.
Hold on, I'm checking. Yeah, this is wrong. I'm on
Okay.
I'm on DraftKings right now. Which is where they're supposed to be getting their odds from. So the UFC website is wrong, even though DraftKings is their official sponsor. I'm on the DraftKings app looking on my phone. Ponzinibbio is minus 180. Morano's plus 155.
That makes more sense.
That makes more sense.
I was gonna pick Ponzinibbio to win by maybe late third round TKO or decision just by being more active. There you go. Kevin even jumped in on that one. Yeah, that seems more accurate to me. The minus 380 for a guy taking a fight on 3 days notice would literally be insane unless you had, Khabib taking the fight. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'll stick then with my original thought before
Ponzinibbio, right?
seeing that. I'm gonna take Ponzinibbio to
Yeah,
win.
yeah.
Like I said, late third round. Again, as the gas tank maybe wears out, kind of like the Darren Till situation in my mind, and he gets caught with a punch, and it leads to a downfall and eventually perhaps a stoppage. So
And
interesting fight.
The new co-main event: Paddy Pimblett versus New York's own Jared Gordon. I'm not picking against Gordon. Coming from that was Serge's boy. I don't like picking against Jared Gordon. I know he's tougher than most folks know about. I mean, if you want to know how tough Jared Flash Gordon is, the dude got freaking Suluev stretched and didn't tap to it and kept on fighting, which is like not for, if you don't know what the Suluev stretch is, look it up and tell me if you tap to it, because that's a painful submission. So I ain't picking against Jared Gordon. I don't care what kind of Cage Warriors featherweight titles Paddy Pimblett had. I know he's the guy. I know he's the guy the UFC is pushing. He's no slouch either. He's a first-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. Again, held the title in Cage Warriors, which is usually a nice check-in on a resume of a fighter coming from his neck of the woods. But I ain't picking against Jared Gordon.
Now you mentioned the Suluev stretch. Anybody looking for some old school stuff? Check out Amar Suluev, the guy who the fight's named after, Russian fighter who died a few years ago from, I think, a rare form of cancer. Really drastic thing, but one of the original Red Devil fight team guys that came up, in the bare knuckle scene in the late '90s. I know this is going to sound weird, but Pimblett made me want to defend Ariel Helwani earlier today, and I really don't even feel like talking to about the guy if that's what it's going to be. I think that he's fallen. I think we're getting trapped into getting him on a main event. He's obviously fun to watch. I don't think he should be anywhere near the top of this card. And now we got Dana White trying to create him into a heel, 48 hours, 72 hours before the fight. Whatever. I don't even care anymore. I think that, the fact he made me defend Ariel Helwani earlier today is enough to make me not care about you, because I do not care about Ariel Helwani. But when you come off sounding like a jackass and then it gets exposed, your tweet or your when your text gets exposed and you look like in my opinion, you look like a jackass. Move on. Dana White's going to pay him whether he wins or loses, and he's going to headline a card whether he wins or loses. Hopefully Jared Gordon knocks him out at this point, and we move on from it. And I was a fan of the guy, but he's talking out of his ass. You want to get paid for interviews? It's not how this works, buddy. There's some people that have some credibility in the sports industry, and you're not supposed to pay for interviews. Move on to the main event for me.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna do that because anyway,
because we got a light heavyweight title fight. That's why we're moving on to it.
Yeah.
Jan Blachowicz versus. You gonna scroll that back up so I pronounce this right? Megomed Ankalaev.
Well, we already know who you're going with.
There is a Megomed. It's a single Megomed though, and that's good. That allows the door to be open for conversation. I am gonna go with Megomed Ankalaev. 18-1. I think Jan hit his peak. I think in my mind, Jan fits into a certain box as a fighter. Little stiff, has his moments. Like, unless you're Rockholt and you're a moron and you stand in front of him and just let him decapitate you, like you I think Ankalaev will have a little bit too much movement. I think he'll be able.
I don't know what kind of medication Matt took tonight, but he's definitely You get some.
Like I
zingers.
said, I had to defend Ariel Helwani earlier, and that's enough to make you want to do more drugs than are available on this planet. So I'll go with Ankleev. How do I see it? 5-round fight, 4th round finish. TKO. Jan gasses out, can't land the big punch, and gets beat. We'll see. I tend to also go for the Russian fighters, as unpopular as that is to say today.
Yeah, no, I'm actually. I think we're in agreement on this card with the. I mean, despite your reasons for the co-main, I mean we're still in agreement. I mean my reasons are different than yours, but yeah, I'm picking Ankalev too, just because I feel like just kind of similar to what you said about it. I just I hate to say about fighters hitting their peak and stuff like that because again they do stuff that we only fucking daydream about doing, but yeah,
there's nothing wrong with hitting his peak. He's a little older in age now. He won the world.
You know what? I get sentimental in my old age.
Yeah,
all right. Me and
but
my boy turned 53 on Tuesday, and I'm I hit some high numbers myself this year. Come on, I'm just I'm a little sentimental in my old age.
yeah, no, I'm with you. But again, he is 39. There's no disrespect in it. He's fighting a younger guy.
Yeah,
who's 18-1. I mean, no matter how you want to look at it.
Anybody that rocks this beard with no mustache seems to be a killer in MMA these days. So
yeah. and you throw in the Megamed, and it's almost
that's it. Beard, no mustache, Megamed.
Yeah,
dead.
That's some witchery shit putting that together. So, but if he stands in front of Jan and lets Jan throw those hammers, anything is possible. Obviously,
and I know, like we always kind of like knock the UFC for, just their money grabs and everything they do. They lost the obviously the pay-per-view is not what it was announced to be when it was initially announced. Card subject is change and all of that. But usually when these cards, stuff like this happens and people start knocking the card usually winds up delivering. So I have a feeling we're gonna be in for a fun final pay-per-view of the year for the UFC.
I think we got good fights. I don't think it's a pay-per-view worthy card as far as like that goes. I think that
they're still going to charge it though.
They're still going to charge it.
Let's like there's some like Billy.
The prelims are loaded. It's a deep card, which allowed them to salvage because without it being a deep card, they would have had a hard time.
How they put Billy Q, who's been on the podcast before, this is why I'm mentioning him. They put Billy Q versus Alex Hernandez as the main fight pass early prelim. I don't know how he winds up there, but I guess because of what's happening with this card, then you have this middleweight bout that somebody's getting knocked out.
Buckley and Curtis is a fun fight. It's a deep card where there's a lot of names. Rosenstruck Dacus is a fun heavyweight fight. I think we got the overhype of the young kid Rosas Jr. I mean, to me, it's a little bit disrespectful that he's headlining the prelims over some of these other names we just mentioned.
Yeah, like not for nothing. I feel like Billy Q should be in this spot. That fight with Hernandez.
I think Rosenstruck. I think the Curtis fight. I think there's a lot of fights that make some sense there. I think on the main card, I would be a lot happier as far as a bout order, which doesn't really mean jack shit, where we get to watch all the fights. But just as a credibility main card, I think that the Mitchell and Topuria fight should have been the co-main event. I think if anything, the Gordon and Pimblett fight would have been a better opener for the pay-per-view.
Listen, dude, I mean, they know what they're doing over there at Endeavor in the UFC machine. You know what I mean? Like they bumped them up to the co-main. They announced their London date today, and then that Dana White goes on Pimblett's podcast on the week of this event to pick up the most clicks by kicking around your boy Helwani.
I watched more of the damn Helwani show today than I've watched combined in my entire life put together, and that is just and I didn't want to, but it's fascinating to me to see. Listen. The guy with the thinnest skin in the history of MMA being called out by the biggest liar in the history of MMA, while trying to change the image of a kid that like everybody kind of liked. Like, what do we? I mean, and then it gets
Listen,
exposed that his manager Graham Boyle, the like, there's just a lot behind the scenes, and it's like you knew that shit was going on, but like, dude, if you call somebody out for begging you to interview, and he pulls out a list of text messages where you're the one doing it, like, I'm sorry, That makes to me that's hilarious.
listen, I'm gonna save you. Like the next time something like this happens, follow Jedi Goodman on Twitter because
Oh, that's what I went. Don't get me wrong.
uh,
His thread was what I watched. So it
okay.
was a lot of like 7-minute clips.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no.
That way you don't.
I ain't clicking on nothing else. It was Jedi Goodman's
Okay.
thread that I followed, but it was just I just
I can only take so much of the tone of squeakiness and the
dude,
the
we're
voice
on the same
cracking.
damn page. Believe me. But I can also only take so much of revisionist history. We've heard the Dana White change. You know, he claims he invented MMA. Let's just cut to the chase. You know, like, you know, if he tells me he created Eve out of friggin' Adam's rib, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind next time. I'm tired of hearing it. You know, the guy just creates stories, and the fact that he's so like hung up on Ariel Helwani is funny to me. And like, there's the fact that there's receipts of him trying to get him fired from all these positions is absolutely insane. Again, without defending Ariel, it's like, my God, like, just give it up, Dana White. Like, it just comes off as
Get
foolish.
a room.
And to use Pimblett to like to do it now, it just seems stupid. It's all for show. Obviously, I was telling you, ticket sales aren't doing great.
Yeah,
Maybe
no,
behind the
that's what I'm
scenes.
saying. That's what I'm saying. It's not a coincidence that came out today. The London announcement came out today, and the pay-per-views on Saturday, dude. Nothing is by accident, especially with that promotion and
Yeah, no, they know what they're
and,
doing, but
and
it also can expose, I don't know, the level of intelligence of some of the fans if you fall for it over and over and over again. Also, maybe some of the intelligence of some of the fighters if you fall for it over and over. Because don't kid yourself, in 3 years, Paddy Plimblett's going to be holding out because he's going to say he's not getting paid enough. Like, we know where this is going. We've seen it over and over again, and nobody ever seems to learn. Maybe nobody cares. I don't really care either. I just think it's funny that people fall for it over and over again. Couple other quick notes from this past weekend. Tyson Fury defended his belt, picked up a win over Chisora. Watched the fight, brutal beatdown. Finally ended on a 10th round. Referee stopped it, saving Chisora from, should have stopped it in about the 5th round. A lot of potential brain trauma in that fight. Eric McGracken had to be quivering in the corner of the room when that went down. Speaking of Eric McGracken, I also managed to pick up a little bit of slap fight over the weekend, as there was a slap fight event on. I don't know how it happens. I don't know. I mean, it was the most ridiculous thing. The worst thing is that there's fouls, right? So I watched these dudes slap each other like 16 times each, and only like one of the slaps counts. Because they were breaking the rules. They're raising their foot off the ground, we are in for maybe the worst. Like, they halfway through this thing, they go, yeah, even though this is a tournament to see who fights the champion, we're not going to allow it to happen. We've never had anybody break the rules as much. It was like foul. And they're still slapping each other. I mean, there's still brain trauma going on, but no, we got to re-slap that one. But we're going to move on to slap number 9 because the first 8 didn't count. It was the most crazy thing I've ever seen in my life.
You know, what's funny is what I did watch was the entire interview with White and Pimblett. And I watched Patty's podcast, the interview where all that stuff came from. And they did talk about the Slap Nuts League or whatever the fuck it's called. And they're doing like an Ultimate Fighter model for whatever's going on. And they're in a house and they're just like the Ultimate Fighter with all these slap competitors. I don't even know what to call them. Slappers. I don't know how stupid they think people are, but the thing is, because in this age of social media, since it's just the whole point of it is to make, like, some vertical video clips of people slapping the shit out of each other. I guess that's just gonna somehow turn into money. I don't know, dude.
The good
Did you
news
see the
is-
belt? Did you see the belt? There's a belt.
No. But what I did see, and it's good news for everybody who never wants to work out in their life, you can be the biggest schlub and the biggest pile of pus ever and compete in this event. Apparently, like there wasn't a person who looked like they had ever done a
Where
sit-up
did you
in their
see it?
entire life. It was. I mean, I gotta be careful how I say I saw it.
I know you go to some weird
There was
places. to watch some weird-
no. There was an event on Fight TV this past weekend, and it was
Yeah.
Oh,
I saw an ad for that. Yeah.
It was shocking to me that that there were so many rules, B that like there's experts on it. Like this guy's like you have like your color man who's like breaking down like, and you're just like, wow.
He's using the meaty part of his hand and not.
Oh god, yeah, no, that's called a club. Yeah. That's called a club.
Oh, wow.
You can't club them. You can only slap. So a club. So like every third slap is a club, and it just doesn't count.
So the boss root and bone strike is illegal.
You can't shift your foot. If your heel leaves the ground. So these dudes took their shoes and socks off, so that their feet would try to stick to the ground. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. And like I said, two guys that made Big Country look like an Adonis. Made him look like Jesse Ventura. I mean, it was the most amazing thing ever. Like the most out of shape dudes I've ever seen in my life. Like that were slapping each other for it. So there's good news. You can be like 50, drink beers nonstop, never work out, and you could be the world slap fighting champion.
Okay.
It's kind of like the bowling of fighting. Fans can check us out at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Lots of action, BKFC Thailand on top of it. Plus, like I mentioned, the BYB event on Friday, Bellator, UFC,
Bellator
LFA,
289, UFC 282, yeah.
A gigantic world of fights this week. Enjoy them, people. Thank you for listening. Have a good night. And
don't slap anybody.
There it is.
When you're doing your Christmas shopping.